Farouk is going to be driving this conversation backed up with Pascal. So, Farouk, take it away.
Okay.
Farouk, are you there? You're muted at the moment.
Hello, yeah. So I'm trying to tell my.
You're echoing.
I think Farouk joined on two devices or something. That is why the echo is coming in like that. Maybe.
Yes, I guess so. Yeah, he's trying to present now.
Okay.
Okay. He's trying to send the presentation. Okay. Hello, Farouk. We can see your presentation now.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. Once again, good afternoon. Thanks for joining the call. Yeah. So I'll be giving us a brief presentation on Windows Virtual Desktop. Yeah. So what is Windows Virtual Desktop? So now we want our customers to know about Windows Virtual Desktop. So what is Windows Virtual Desktop? So Windows Virtual Desktop is a desktop, or should I say, the complete desktop and application virtualization scenario that runs in cloud. So now, let's say, for example, we are looking at employing new staff. So we are looking at employing maybe new contract staffs, probably for about 6 months, or maybe for a little period of time, or probably a long period of time. So instead of you investing your money on buying new laptops for the new staffs, whereby you need to pay for the hardware, that's for the laptop hardware. You need to pay for the operating system. You need to pay for a lot of things. Yeah. So you could just make use of this Windows Virtual Desktop just to virtualize a complete, either a complete desktop environment, whereby the user will be able to access the desktop environment directly from your device, being it a mobile device, that's it, being it a desktop, being it a laptop, being it a mobile phone, that's Android, iOS, or maybe Windows phone. Yeah, so that's to show that this Windows Virtual Desktop, it is a it is a complete desktop and application virtualization scenario that can be used on any platform. You can access it on any kind of platform as long as the platform has a browser. It has an HTML5 browser. So if it's your Android phone, you can access it from it to your tablet. Yeah. So looking at this picture that I have there, I said it's possible for you to virtualize a complete desktop and an application virtualization scenario. So now, let's say, for example, now I work with the marketing team. I work with the marketing team. Maybe yeah, but they works with the finance team. Then maybe Mr. Emmanuel works with the engineering team. Okay, now so instead of the company to buy a complete desktop for me, to buy a complete laptop for me. Yeah, so what they can just do is that as a marketing person, I work more I work often with my PowerPoint because as a marketing person, I do presentations and stuff like that. Okay, now, and I check my emails directly from my Outlook. So now, instead of you virtualizing the complete desktop for me, you could just make use of this Windows Virtual Desktop to virtualize an application scenario for me, or should I say an application virtualization scenario that it should help me virtualize it, whereby in my Windows Virtual Desktop platform, or in my Windows Virtual Desktop environment, the only thing I would see there is just the Outlook and the PowerPoint that I make use of. So this will help you to reduce cost. Instead of you buying a complete laptop, you can just virtualize the Outlook and PowerPoint for me, whereby in my environment, I can access those two things, and I'll be able to access that environment directly from any kind of platform I'm using. Is it the Windows phone? Is it Android phone? Is it tablet? Is it Mac? Any type of device, I can access it from it. Also, when you look at the finance department, they make use of Excel. They make use of Excel. They make use of Excel for their day-to-day activity. So now, instead of you virtualizing a complete desktop for me, you could just for the finance people, you could just virtualize an application group whereby what they would have access to is just the Excel and Outlook. Then for the engineering department, yeah, so if the person is a developer, you know that for the developer, they make use of, they need a lot, they need admin rights for some of their stuff, for some of their coding and stuff like that. So you could just deploy a complete desktop environment for them because of the kind of activities, the kind of things they do on a regular basis. So you can virtualize the complete desktop for them. So in general, what I'm just trying to say is that this Windows Virtual Desktop, you could virtualize both complete desktop and also you could virtualize application group for them, depending on the kind of work everybody do. So, and this Windows Virtual Desktop, it supports what is called a multi-session Windows 10. So now, let's say for example, now I want to virtualize. I have about maybe 100 users. So now I can just virtualize a particular virtual machine for them, whereby those 100 users will be able to access that Windows Virtual Desktop, that VM. Those 100 users will be able to access that VM concurrently, and the performance of the VM will still be intact because it makes use of what is called FX logic. And what that FX logic does is that it creates separate containers for all the users. If you have 100 users accessing a particular VM at once, the performance of the VM will still be intact because the FX logic, it creates separate containers for all the users. So now we have about, let's say I have user A, I have user B, and I have user C. So anything user A is doing on the VM, everything goes into that user's A container because he has his own separate container. Same as user B, he has his own container. Same as user C, the person has his own container as well. So everything I'm doing, it goes directly to each container, and the performance of the VM is still intact. So we can't say that because 100 people are accessing a VM or 100 people have a session on the VM concurrently, the performance of the VM will be low. No, the performance of the VM will still be intact. And this Windows Virtual Desktop also comes with the built-in Microsoft security and compliance features that we have in place, the likes of Azure Active Directory Premium. You can extend the capability of those security features to Windows Virtual Desktop. The likes of Microsoft Intune. If you are using Microsoft Intune to manage your devices, you can extend the capability to it. If you are using System Center Configuration Manager to manage your devices, you can also extend the capability to it. If the likes of multi-factor authentication, if you are using it, you can also extend the capability to this Windows Virtual Desktop, whereby you know that as your users are using these PCs, everything they are doing is actually being secured. And also, we know that most companies, they make use of group policy to manage some resources on their in their environment. So you can also extend the capabilities of this group policy to all these Windows Virtual Desktop. So that is what Windows Virtual Desktop is all about. So now about the benefits of Windows Virtual Desktop. So what are the benefits? So now you can virtualize both complete desktop or maybe application group and assign it to users for them to use. Like I said, you can either virtualize a complete desktop or you virtualize maybe an application group. Also, it virtualizes Office 365 Pro Plus and deliver it for your users. So now, this Windows Virtual Desktop, while deploying it, it comes with Office 365 Pro Plus. And the performance of this Office 365 Pro Plus is actually very, very okay. So now, as your users are using this Windows Virtual Desktop, note that if they need to use the Office 365 app, that's the Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. As long as they are using it, everything is actually being intact. Also, when you look at the cost aspect, so now if you optimize or if you virtualize a multi-session Windows Virtual Desktop, a multi-session virtual machine for users, let's say you have 100 users, you spin up a virtual machine and you assign it to about 100 users. So this helps you to lower cost rather than you buying laptops for those 100 users. You pay for different things, you pay for the hardware, you pay for software and stuff like that. But with this Windows Virtual Desktop, you can leverage the multi-session resources and spin up a particular VM for several users to have a multi-session going on it. Also, if you have an existing remote desktop service that you use, you can even capture the image and bring it into this Windows Virtual Desktop. Also, you can publish as many host pools. Like I said, you can deploy many host pools, many VMs, and assign it to users. Also, it also has a unified and simplified management experience for admin. So now, in managing the admin part of the Windows Virtual Desktop, there's no need for you to start writing code or start writing PowerShell commands before you can be able to access or before you can be able to manage this Windows Virtual Desktop. It has a very friendly user interface. I'm going to show us after I'm done with this slide. I mean this presentation. I'm going to give us just a little demo on how the admin portal looks like. So it has a very friendly user admin experience. So it's very easy to manage. So that's about that. And also when you look at the user experience, like I said, you can make use of it on any kind of devices, any platform. Is it the Android? Is it iOS? Is it Windows? You can make use of it. So it crosses across all platforms, and it also helps you to improve the way your users work remotely. It enhances your remote work experience. Also, when you look at the security aspect, like I said, you could extend the capability of this Windows Virtual Desktop. I mean, you could extend the capability of your existing security features, the likes of multi-factor authentication, the likes of conditional access, the likes of Microsoft Intune, the likes of group policies. You can extend the capability and bring it into this Windows Virtual Desktop environment, and it will help you to enhance your security features. And also for this management, like I said, it is very easy to manage. It has a simplified management. Then for the cost aspect, it is it is not too cost. So when you look at the amount you're going to spend on laptop, hardware and co, when you look at Azure is not very expensive to manage. So let's say you want to employ the staff for maybe 6 months. After you've deployed this Windows Virtual Desktop for them, they're able to use it. After the 6 months, you just sort it down. You know that your cost is actually being saved for you. So instead of you buying laptop and after 6 months, once their contract with you expires and they leave your organization, you just go and keep the laptop somewhere else. But with this Windows Virtual Desktop, after their contract has expired or after they've left your organization, you can just shut down this Windows Virtual Desktop and everything will be fine. Also, it has a strong partner ecosystem. So you could integrate this Windows Virtual Desktop to other third-party solutions, maybe for monitoring solutions, maybe for auditing purpose and stuff. So you could also integrate Windows Virtual Desktop with other third-party tools for better management. That's about the benefits. Also, about the virtualization scenario. So now this Windows Virtual Desktop, it has several business scenarios. So now when you look at the security and regulatory organization, the likes of government, healthcare, financial services, those ones, they don't even want their organization data to live, or they don't want people leaving their organization with organization data. So now with this Windows Virtual Desktop also come into this kind of scenario, because let's say for example we spin up a virtual machine using Windows Virtual Desktop and we assign it to our users. Although our users are able to access the Windows Virtual Desktop directly from their mobile phones, but anything they are doing on that Windows Virtual Desktop, it is being saved directly to their container. They are unable to save, or they can't be allowed to save anything on their personal phone storage. so that whenever they leave the organization data, everything is actually being saved in the organization container. So the issue of user leaving the organization and going with the organization data is actually being resolved. Also, we don't want people to be able to copy from the Windows virtual desktop environment to their personal storage. We don't want people to be able to move things from the organization Windows virtual desktop environment to their personal phones or to their personal laptop where they are using the Windows virtual desktop. Everything also comes in place. When you look at the flexible workforce, the likes of BYOD, so now I can bring in my personal device to access my organization Windows virtual desktop. So once it is being deployed and assigned to the user, you just share the URL with them, or probably you download the agent for them. They'll be able to access the Windows virtual desktop environment directly from their mobile phones or directly from their personal, their own device. So it also comes in place with these BYOD and mobile devices. Also, when you look at the short-time employees, so now you want to employ a staff for a short-time period of time or for a short period of time. So you could just deploy this Windows virtual desktop for them, assign it to them for the little period of time they want to work with you. After then, shut it down. Same thing applies to the contractors. So you could just virtualize, or you could just deploy this Windows virtual desktop for them, assign it to them. After their contract expires, you revoke the access from them. And also, when you look at the specialized workloads, the likes of engineers, the likes of developers, the likes of infrastructure people, yeah, so you could also make use of this Windows virtual desktop to virtualize a complete personal desktop for them, whereby they will have admin rights and some other rights on the Windows virtual desktop, and they'll be able to perform their day-to-day activities and their day-to-day tasks. So that's about the that's about the virtualization business scenario of Windows virtual desktop. The next thing is talking about the supported operating system. So now Windows virtual desktop supports a lot of operating system. When you look at the likes of Windows 10 multi-section. So now this Windows 10 multi-section is the one that allows several users to be able to access a Windows virtual desktop concurrently. Also, we have what is called the Windows 10 single session. So this one, it allows you to deploy a virtual machine, a single virtual machine, and assign it to just one person, whereby the person will be able to perform his day-to-day tasks there. We have the Windows 10 single session. We have the Windows Server 2019. We have the Windows Server 2016. Then we have the Windows Server 2012 Auto. So all these operating systems are actually being supported by Windows Virtual Desktop. So the next thing is about the customers that are eligible for Windows Virtual Desktop. So now as a customer, if you have M365, either E3 or E5, or probably F1, or maybe business, M365 business, you are fully qualified for this Windows Virtual Desktop. So now there are some customers that doesn't have the M365 license. So, but they have what is called the Office 365 license, being it Office 365 E3, E5, E1. As long as you have the Office 365 license, you have Windows 10 license. That's either Windows 10 Enterprise or Windows 10 Education. And you have the Enterprise Mobility and Security license for the security aspect. So you're actually qualified for the Windows Virtual Desktop. So it's either you have M365 license or you have O365 Enterprise Mobility and Security and Windows 10 license. So once you have those licenses, you are eligible for the Windows Virtual Desktop. And for the server aspect, as long as you have the RDS core license, you are also qualified for the Windows Virtual Desktop. So the only thing you pay for, the only thing you need to be worried about is the virtual machines we are deploying. Is the storage accounts those users will be using and the networking that will be consumed by the users. So we shouldn't forget that it's possible for us to deploy one virtual machine for several users. So the only thing you should be worried about, or the only thing you'll be paid for, is just the virtual machine and the Azure resources they are going to use. That's all. So most customers are actually eligible for this Windows Virtual Desktop by default. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the infrastructure prerequisite for deploying Windows Virtual Desktop. So the first thing is Azure subscription. So now, because we need to create virtual machine, we need to create a virtual network for those people to be on the network. Yeah, so I mean for those virtual machines to be on the network. Yeah, so we need Azure subscription. So once we have the Azure subscription, the next thing we need to consider, or the next prerequisite, is what is called Azure Active Directory. So now, you need an Azure Active Directory. So now, for an organization that make use of an on-premise environment, so you could just make use of AD Connect to synchronize your identity from the local Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. And for users that have an hybrid environment, so by default, you as well have an Azure Active Directory. So once you have that, the next thing for you to do is to determine your identity strategy, which is the most important prerequisite. So the reason why we need to identify our identity strategy is that those virtual machines that we are deploying, they have to be joined to a particular domain. So is it the Azure domain or the local domain? So now for environment, or for a cloud-based environment, so you could just make use of what is called the Azure Active Directory Domain Service, which is just like our on-prem Active Directory Domain Service. So whereby all the VMs you are deploying, it will be joined into your organization Azure Active Directory. Then if it's for the company that has the local AD, so now you have two options. You could as well deploy this Azure Active Directory Domain Service, whereby those PCs you are deploying, they are being joined to your Azure Active Directory Domain Service. Or you can also make use of a VPN if you have a VPN connectivity from your local Active Directory to Azure. So you have two options. You can make use of your on-premise AD using a VPN, as long as there's a VPN connectivity between your local AD and Azure. If you don't have that, you can as well make use of Azure Active Directory Domain Service, whereby those VMs will be joined to your Azure Active Directory domain. So once you have that one in place, then the next thing is to look at the Azure resources. So now all the resources we are creating, they should be in one region. The likes of the virtual machine, the likes of the virtual network, and the likes of the storage account, they should be in one particular Azure resources. After then, we should know that any deployment we are doing, we need credentials. So you need Azure Active Directory credentials, you need the Windows Virtual Desktop tenant credential, that's the admin credential. Then you need the subscription contributor role for you to be able to deploy the virtual machine. Then you need the local admin, right, so that you'll be able to join the virtual machines to your admin. And definitely you need a virtual machine admin for you to be able to deploy a virtual machine. So once you have those prerequisites in place, you are good to go for Windows Virtual Desktop, or you are good to deploy Windows Virtual Desktop. So the next slide is giving us just like an insight about what will be managed by ourselves and what will be managed by Microsoft. So now the likes of web access, gateway, load balancing, brokers, and management, those ones should be managed by Microsoft. The only thing you need to be worried about is just the virtual machine. I mean, it's just the operating system. The Windows 10 operating system you want to use. Is it the application? Is it just an application you want to publish to the user? Do you have an on-premise application you want to connect with Windows Virtual Desktop? So those are the things that you'll be worried about. Every other thing, the likes of compute, storage, load balancing, everything will be managed by Microsoft. And if you have an existing management tool, the likes of Intune or maybe Configuration Manager, you can also manage the Windows Virtual Desktop using those management tools. Then also, if you have maybe you have like an on-premise application that your users make use of, you could also connect the Windows Virtual Desktop to those on-premise resources, whereby your users will be able to access those on-premise applications directly from Windows Virtual Desktop environment. So that's about the architecture, or should I say the architecture plan. Then also, when you look at the recommended identity strategy, like I said, then we have two strategies. We have the Azure Active Directory Domain Service, and we have the VPN, whereby we have a local AD, we make use of VPN. So for cloud-based environment, you need an Azure Active Directory. Then you need what is called Azure Active Directory Domain Service, which runs like a Windows Server as a service, whereby all those VMs you are creating, they will actually be joined to your Azure Active Directory Domain Service. So once you have that in place, then for the hybrid environment, so as long as you have Azure Active Directory, that means you've made your AD Connect to synchronize your identity from the local AD to Azure AD. Then there are two ways. You can spin up a virtual machine in Azure. You can spin up a virtual machine in Azure, a Windows Server virtual machine in Azure, whereby you promote it to a domain controller. And your virtual machine will actually be joined to that your local domain controller. Or you can make use of a VPN, either an express route VPN or a site-to-site VPN, to connect your local Active Directory to Azure. So that your VMs, those Windows Virtual Desktop, will actually be able to join to your local Active Directory. And the reason why we need this identity strategy is just for us to have those virtual machines we are deploying joined to a particular domain, because those virtual machines, they need to be joined to a domain. So that's why we need a good identity strategy. We need Azure Active Directory Domain Service, or maybe our local Active Directory Domain Service. So that's about that. So in summary, what Windows Virtual Desktop does is that, or what Windows Virtual Desktop is a desktop and application. It's a desktop and application virtualization scenarios that runs in cloud, and it can be accessible using any kind of device. It can be accessible on any kind of platform. Is it on your Android device? Is it on your mobile? On your Windows devices? Is it on your iOS device? Is it on your Mac device? You can access the Windows Virtual Desktop directly from any kind of device, and it also connects easily to your on-premise resources. So that's all about Windows Virtual Desktop. I don't know if you have any question regarding the presentation. Thank you. Hello?
Yeah, hello, Farouk, I'm here. I don't know if I've heard that person.
Okay. Yeah, so do you have any question regarding? I understand the presentation has been so boring, but then I don't know if you have any question.
No, it's actually not boring. I can relate, and thank you very much for the presentation. Right, so as you're talking, I've actually been thinking about how this can be applied to our present infrastructure, and how to how we can adopt it, and for what use we can adopt it for. But before we move on to that, I first want to ask, like how many concurrent sessions can be run at the same time on a virtual machine?
Yeah, so now for now there's no maximum number. So hundreds of users can access the Windows Virtual Desktop concurrently. You can deploy one VM for 300 users, and all of them will be able to access the VM concurrently without having a bad performance.
And what could be like the cost implications of spinning up this VM in a month on Azure? I understand that it's per usage, right? And at times to save cost and all, we might need to be shutting down the VM, right? At some point to reduce consumption cost. But in overall, like what do you think the cost implication per month would be?
Yeah, so it depends on the number of users. It depends on the number of users. It depends on the number of users. that you want to deploy the Windows Virtual Desktop for.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Yeah,
per virtual per VM now.
yeah, so it still depends on the number of users.
Okay, how is the number of
Okay,
users accessing the VM?
yeah, the number
It is
of
per
users.
resources.
So the number of users you want to assign to the VM. So let's say, for example, now let's say in my own environment, I want to deploy just 2 virtual machines, and I want to assign it to 200 users. Maybe the first virtual machine to 100 users and the second virtual machine to 100 users. So now the price or the cost implication from my own environment will be different from another environment that want to deploy 1 virtual machine for 50 users. You understand? So depending on the amount of users that you want to grant access to that virtual machine. So the prices vary. It depends on the users. So maybe in your environment, maybe you are looking at deploying 2 virtual machines for 100 users. So if you give me that kind of insight, that's when I can maybe come up with maybe a pricing for you, just to have like an estimate on how much it can cost you for this kind of thing.
I don't know if I'm wrong or if I'm correct, right? Maybe you might correct me. I've used this Azure Resource Calculator before, right? And using Azure Resource Calculator, I never saw like that. Maybe it's different from the normal VM that you spin up in Azure. Maybe the
Yeah,
WVD is different from
yeah,
the type VM that
yeah,
you spin up
yeah,
in Azure.
yeah. The Windows Virtual Desktop, although looking at it, why using it is just like you using your normal VM, but then why calculating, why using Azure Calculator to calculate the pricing of Windows Virtual Desktop? Um, it requires a lot of information, and one of the information is the amount of users that will be accessing the Windows Virtual Desktop. The virtual machine
What's the difference
concurrently.
between the WVD and the normal VM that you spin up in Azure?
So now the normal VM is spin up in Azure now. So now, you might not be able to, like, for example, now you can't have about 100 concurrent sessions on the normal Windows. On the normal VM, or should I say, in the normal VM you can deploy in Azure now, right? So now the normal VM you have in Azure. Are you with me? You can't, although you can as well connect it to your Active Directory, whereby that's either your local Active Directory or your Azure Active Directory, whereby you can use GPO and all those things to manage the virtual machine, right? So now all those other, the current virtual machine as well, can you access it directly from any kind of device? Like, can you access it directly from a browser, and your users will be able to access the Windows Virtual Desktop anywhere, even though they are not on your network?
Hmm?
So now, hello, are
Yeah,
you
go on. I'm
getting
with
it,
you.
sir? Are you getting it? So now with this Windows Virtual Desktop, while you are deploying the Windows Virtual Desktop, it automatically joins those virtual machines to a domain. To the domain you want to join it to. So as long as you've specified the domain and all the prerequisites you have in place, they are in place. So while deploying the Windows Virtual Desktop, it automatically joins those VMs to the domain. Unlike the normal virtual machines, once you deploy it finish, you have to go to it. If it's a local Active Directory, you have to place it on the DNS network. You have to you have to resolve the DNS to be your local DNS. Then you have to join it manually. This one, it automatically joins the VM to the domain while deploying it. Several users can access it concurrently. You can easily connect this Windows Virtual Desktop VM to your on-premise resources. You can access this Windows Virtual Desktop. You can access it from any kind of devices. And also, while deploying this Windows Virtual Desktop, it also comes with It also comes with, or we also make use of what is called FX logic. And this FX logic, it creates separate containers for all the users, unlike the normal virtual machine. Okay, let's say like 5 people can access the normal virtual machine concurrently. That's after you've purchased the license for multiple access to that VM. Anything they are doing is actually being saved in one container. Unlike this Windows Virtual Desktop, anything each users are saving in that Windows Virtual Desktop environment, it saves it in different containers. So those are the differences between the Windows Virtual Desktop and the normal VM. And also the Windows Virtual Desktop, for you to be able to manage it, all the VMs that you are creating is actually being, okay, let's say for example now, this Windows Virtual Desktop, we have what is called an host pool. So that host pool is just like a list of virtual machines. So in one Windows Virtual Desktop, you can have several host pools. Unlike your normal VM, whereby you create one VM, anything you want to do is in that VM. You don't have anything to do with the management aspect. So those are the differences between the Windows Virtual Desktop and the normal VM. Hello?
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I would
Yeah, so
appreciate the cost indication anyways, to be able to, because it's going to guide our decision
you'd
at the
appreciate
end.
what? You'd appreciate what?
Like a cost estimate, maybe for
Yeah,
like access for
uh,
up to 20 users.
okay, 20 users. Okay. So I'll come up with the cost estimate for 20 users, and I would
And
share it.
also, yeah, and also I'll be looking at something, right? There is this project that I've been trying to like undertake. I don't know if it's something that you guys can assist with. So we have a network attached storage, right? So on the network attached storage, we're trying to, it's a local network attached storage, right? So we're trying to look for a way to move it to the cloud, right? So we're thinking of using Azure, right? So I don't know if it's something that you can assist with, like moving it to an Azure, like creating a storage account and replicating it to Azure,
Yeah.
because I checked it's QNAS storage, right? So I think they have an Azure replication option, right? So I don't know if it's something that you can assist with. So.
Yeah. Mr. Emmanuel. Hello, Mr. Emmanuel. Hello.
Yeah. Hello, Olalade.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry, I missed the first half of your statement. You
yeah.
said you're
I
looking to
said
migrate certain workloads onto
we
Azure.
have a local we have a local network attached storage by QNAS, right?
Okay.
So I was checking through. So the issue we have is we only access it on our LAN. So I'm looking at moving it to cloud, like replicating it to the cloud, right? Such that
Okay.
you know we are working from home right now, so wherever everyone is, they can easily access it and check for whatever
Okay,
file that.
got it.
So I saw that they have an option of moving it to Azure, right? Creating a storage account in
Migrating.
Azure and the likes, right? So I'm looking at if it's possible, if it's a project that I can assist with, right? Though I was
Oh,
following the
definitely, we
documentation.
can.
Yeah, I was following the documentation, and I think I have an MCT, right? So I have this free $200 on Azure every month, right? So I'm looking at using that. So I created a storage account. So just remaining that replication part to the Azure, right? So I don't know if it's something that we can look into together.
Okay, maybe we'll set up a separate session to do that.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
If you can do that too.
All right.
Yeah, so Farouk, I'll
And
be
then,
waiting for the cost estimate on the 20 users, right?
Oh, okay. That's fine. That's fine. I'll share
That's
it
going
with
to
you.
that's going to aid our decision making.
Yeah, sure. 20 users. Okay. So also what region do you use for your Azure resources? Do you use North Europe? Do you use
Which one did I use
West
last? I think I used Africa. I think I used South Africa. I would always want a region that is closer, right?
Okay.
I'd always want a region that is closer to Africa because of
Okay.
these, because of easy access and all those latency issues, geolocation issues.
Okay, noted. I'll come up with the cost estimate and I'll share it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, Mr. Emmanuel, should I be waiting for an invite on that?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
what time works for you?
We can have the meeting like right about now, if you don't mind. I think I still have to like 1:30 rather. Yeah, but then if it doesn't work well with you, we can try to schedule another time, like maybe tomorrow, same time tomorrow or something.
Let's schedule same time tomorrow, but we just need some information, some background information. So maybe you can just send us an email with a brief summary of what's existing, what you need to do, or what you want to do, and then we can now tackle
Pick it
that
up from there.
in the meeting tomorrow.
Okay, sure. I'll send you an email right after the meeting.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know if you still have any other thing for me right now.
Well, I think what I would have wanted, or what I would have wanted from you, is just like the next action plan. So I think
So
the
what is
one
going to guide
that is
what is going to guide the next action plan is this, right? So there are two things basically. The first is application, right? Application of this WVD into our environment, right? And the second very important thing is the cost implication of having like, let's say 10. I would actually want 10 users concurrently and 20 users concurrently, accessing it, right? Accessing the WVD. Right. So, it's not just about accessing it, it's about we need to also find an application, a very good application for it, right? An application scenario for it, which is what we're going to pitch out to to the management. Okay, fine. Maybe we have something that everyone uses, and we can actually use this to access that, or we can use this for interns, or we just need an application, right? Which is what I'm going to work on, right? From my
So
own
this
end.
is like a proof of concept, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so I think that would be the good next step.
Yeah.
So maybe in a separate email on that, you can just tell us what the requirements are. Like you've said, 10 users, 20 users, what application, and information around that.
Yeah, I need to first check from my end, right?
Okay.
What we have existing, what we would like to innovate in, or innovate on rather, and how the WPD would come into play in that innovation, right? And afterwards we cannot just set the WVD up, so whatever reasons that we're going to set it up is going to be the cost is going to be a huge determining factor, right? So we need to look at the applications or whatever that we need to run on that, how it's going to be cost effective and optimized by the company. Because one thing is deploying it, another thing is optimizing it, right? And the last thing, the first thing, which is the major thing, is just the cost implications, right? Is the management ready to go through this for this purpose, right? Is the management ready to part with this amount monthly for this purpose, right? So the reason behind deploying it is going to be a huge determining factor too, because this is going to be the what I'm going to use to convince them, right? We can deploy it, anyone can deploy it, but what do we want to use it for? How is it going to help the business? What software or what application do we want to be running on it? What is the purpose that is going to serve? Right? It can serve a whole lot of purpose, but then, I'm talking in relation to detailed commercial solicitors now, right? Like what exactly is it going to add to the business, right? Which is what I'll need to come up with from my own end, looking at what we have existing. Then we'll pick it up from there. And I'll be waiting for Farouk's update on the cost implication for 10 users or for 20 users, right? So I guess that'll be all from my end. So I should be able to get back like before the end of the week, right? We have some other things that we are planning to do, right? Which I'll be updating you as time goes on, right? Which could also perhaps assist you in thinking alongside with me on how the WVD will assist or work for us in those areas, right? So
That's
I think that's
perfect.
pretty much it.
Available to help.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from my end. And I'll send you the email, right, as regards the replication of NAS, right? That is actually like a pressing project for me right now.
Okay.
You know, so we just pick it up from there.
All
And I want to
right.
thank you very much once again, Farouk. Thank you for the great presentation, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Mr. Manuel. Thank you, everyone on the call.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
time, Mr.
Ladley.
Ololade.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thanks,
I'll
Baruch.
avail you the recording.
Yeah. Thank you, yeah, but yeah, please share me the recording and I just
Definitely,
click.
we'll upload it on YouTube, then we'll share the link.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
very much. Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
Iyabo. Thanks, Damiola.
Okay.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Cheers.
Everyone.